think it's fair when people call Meghan a narcissist? Is that
I think that's so true, and it's an understatement.
Understatement.
Well, I think that she's much more than that. I mean, she is. I mean, it's just as you said in Australia, I've been campaigning for women all my life. Now I'm campaigning for myself. I mean, it's all ridiculous. She never campaigned for women. She always campaigned for herself.
No one in the mainstream media has been brave enough to go there. Well, that has just changed.
But I would be embarrassed as the wife to have that. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel goes after him over this, and I would be humiliated over him fixating on this in his big book.
Let me tell you something that a lot of big media voices don't want to touch out loud. Tom Bower, the author who shook things up with his explosive book Betrayal, has been sitting on claims and details that are now starting to spill into the spotlight. Now, when you line up what Tom Bower has been saying over the years with what people online are now questioning and discussing, things like finances, official scrutiny, and public records, you start to see a bigger picture forming. This situation isn't just shaky, it's looking seriously unstable. Stay with me, because what comes next might completely shift how you look at this whole story.
It really is pretty empty, other than that she has this amazing title and has always got the threat of destroying the British royal family.
Tom Bower didn't just drop a book and walk away. He cracked open a door, and now more people are stepping through it, asking the kind of questions that probably should have been raised a long time ago. Let's talk about the money, because that's where things get real interesting. Tom Bower has been very direct with his claims that the Sussex finances are under pressure. Reports and commentary suggest their lifestyle could cost millions each year after tax. Major deals like Netflix and Spotify have faced challenges or ended, and some of their business ventures haven't gained the traction people expected. It's raising eyebrows and getting people talking more than ever. So where exactly is the money coming from? That's the question a lot of commentators and critics keep raising. When people see reports of income slowing down while expenses still look sky high, it naturally gets attention. Some voices online have even speculated about whether financial oversight agencies would ever take a closer look.
And I think your viewers will be interested in this, is when Meghan, before she gets married, meets a very, very famous, important member of the British establishment.
But to be clear, there's no confirmed investigation publicly established. Still, the curiosity isn't going away anytime soon. But that's not the only topic people keep circling back to. Harry's US visa situation has quietly stayed in the background for years, yet it keeps popping up in discussions. This is largely because of what he shared in his own memoir, Spare, where he openly talked about past drug use, cocaine, cannabis, and psychedelic substances, all described in his own words and even narrated by him in the audiobook. That detail alone caught a lot of attention, especially from commentators like Tom Bower, who have pointed it out repeatedly, because it wasn't just written down and left on paper. He spoke it out loud, word for word, making it part of the public record in a way that's hard to ignore.
And that person is brought in every 3 to 4 weeks to Kensington Palace.
That decision alone has kept the conversation alive and stirred strong reactions across different audiences. Now here's where things get tricky and people start making big claims. Some voices online argue that past drug use can affect visa decisions under US immigration law, but it's not as simple as full stop, automatic denial like some are saying. Each case depends on details, disclosures, and legal processes that aren't public. Still, critics keep pointing at this issue and asking why everything seems quiet, with no clear public explanation. Harry is living in Montecito, California, and from the outside, it may look like there are no consequences or answers being shared.
Tom Bower, author of Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family, a forensic examination of the many contradictions and controversies surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle over the past 7 years.
That silence is exactly what keeps fueling speculation. Tom Bower and others have claimed that Harry and Meghan act like rules don't apply to them. And whether people agree or not, that idea keeps getting repeated louder and louder. The real question people keep asking is how long that perception can last before more clarity is demanded. Now, when it comes to child services, this is where things can easily cross into rumor, and it's important to stay grounded. There have been claims and conversations online about the births of Archie and Lilibet, but no verified evidence has backed up any serious allegations. A lot of what's circulating comes from speculation rather than confirmed facts.
Something that we continue to talk about, because there is something there that we need to find the missing pieces to, because I believe a lot of it was scrubbed off of the internet way before we even knew who Meghan Markle was.
Even if some people presenting it say they've done deep research, that distinction matters because not everything being shared holds up under scrutiny. About the timelines, about what has and hasn't been shown publicly. Those are the kinds of questions people keep bringing up. And to be clear, they should stay as questions, not turn into wild accusations. As of 2026, the curiosity around these details hasn't faded. In fact, it's getting louder, with more people asking for clearer explanations instead of speculation filling the gaps. Now, this is where Tom Bower's work gets a lot of attention, because he has long argued that Meghan Markle's entry into Harry's life may not be as simple as the public story suggests. But let's be real about what's actually confirmed versus what's interpretation. The official version is straightforward. They met through mutual connections, built a relationship, and that was that.
What's around is that they're rapidly burning through their cash and they don't know how they're going to keep on funding this lavish lifestyle.
Well, I think that is absolutely true. I mean, I raised that more than 2 years ago, that once the Netflix deal expired, which I knew it would, that they really have a huge financial problem because their lifestyle costs them a minimum after tax of £3 million a year.
Still, some commentators and online researchers have questioned whether that first Soho House meeting was purely chance or more intentional. But there's no verified evidence proving it was engineered. That hasn't stopped the discussion from growing, though. And one name that keeps popping up in these conversations is Marcus Anderson, known for his connections within Soho House circles and his ongoing association with the couple. People find it interesting that he has remained close over time, even as other relationships have shifted. That alone keeps the speculation alive. And as Tom Bower has claimed, Meghan has had a number of past relationships and connections that didn't last. But jumping to conclusions about why one person stayed in her circle while others didn't, that's where things turn into speculation fast. Marcus Anderson is often mentioned because he's remained a visible long-term connection, and naturally people ask why that is. Still, there's no solid evidence pointing to anything unusual beyond a continued friendship, even if the question keeps getting attention. Then there's the period of her life before Suits, which some online discussions have started to focus on again. Photos, travel timelines, and old connections get pulled apart and re-examined.
You're doing the Lord's work, Tom Bower, having to count the word Todger in the book Spare. I mean, what must have Meghan thought? Actually, you talk about that. You say she's exhausted by the book in the end, and she just wants to focus on her own pursuits.
With people asking what she was doing during those earlier years. The truth is, much of that time reflects someone building a career, networking, and moving through different social and professional circles, something pretty common in the entertainment world. Tom Bower has described Meghan as highly ambitious, and that's a point many people agree on, whether they support her or not. Stories about her early drive, like wanting to be in the spotlight from a young age, often get repeated to illustrate that determination. But ambition on its own isn't unusual. It's practically a requirement in that industry. The real debate comes from how people interpret that ambition, and that's where opinions start to clash hard. Ambition in Hollywood has always been tied to access, connections, and being in the right rooms at the right time. That part isn't shocking. It's how the industry works. But when people start linking that general truth to specific claims about individuals, it can quickly drift away from what's actually proven. Tom Bauer has argued that Suits wasn't a breakout, star-making platform, and that's a fair critique. It was a solid show, but not a global launchpad.
Well, it just shows you what a child he is, a schoolboy, not realizing the damage he was inflicting on himself, the humiliation, the parody was.
Still, making the jump from that to implying something unusual about how she met Prince Harry goes beyond what's backed by evidence. The idea that her background or age has been misrepresented is another claim that keeps circulating, but there's no verified proof supporting it. Public records and official biographies have been consistent, even if some critics say otherwise. When family dynamics or vague comments get pulled into the mix, it can sound dramatic, but it doesn't automatically change the factual record. Those kinds of claims need solid evidence, not just suspicion or selective interpretation. Tom Bauer's reputation comes from digging into controversial angles and raising tough questions. That's what keeps his work in the spotlight. But following threads others won't doesn't always mean those threads lead to confirmed conclusions.
Meghan is a woman who's very, very conscious of money because of her childhood and everything, and therefore is terrified and needs to build a brand. And the Netflix deal fell apart because they had nothing new to offer, as ever was a failure. I think they put all the effort they could into making it successful. But in the end, Meghan had nothing to offer other than smiling with a lot of non-entities and offering recipes which were just ridiculous.
Right now, a lot of what's being discussed sits in that gray zone between opinion, interpretation, and verified fact. And it's important not to blur those lines. And when he drops a comment in an interview that gets people talking, it tends to spark strong reactions fast, especially from audiences already invested in the story. He suggested that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, may have felt threatened by Meghan Markle, and that claim lit up his audience instantly. The reaction wasn't subtle either. It was loud, divided, and impossible to ignore. What's interesting is that Tom Bauer's followers usually back him without hesitation. But on this point, the pushback came fast and strong, with many rejecting the idea outright. That alone says a lot about how sensitive and debated this topic really is. Now, here's where things get more layered. Some commentators argue that Meghan brought a very different energy into the royal spotlight, more outspoken, more willing to challenge tradition, and clearly comfortable commanding attention. That kind of presence was always going to shift dynamics and force adjustments within such a structured institution. But saying that automatically equals threat is a leap that not everyone agrees with. Because when people talk about Catherine, they often describe someone who understands the system deeply and knows how to operate within it with precision. The counter-argument is that rather than feeling threatened, she likely recognized exactly what was happening from the start and responded in her own way. That contrast between two very different public styles is what keeps this conversation alive and so intensely debated.
Jessica Reed Krause of House and Habit says that she has the receipts, and the Yacht Girl story is something that she has been working on now for years and years. And what I think is most interesting, P. Dinah, is we need to discover who engineered that meeting.
She sized Meghan up quickly, that's how some commentators frame it, and decided there could be a serious clash in approach, not some instant threat narrative. The picture they paint is of two very different styles colliding fast, with Catherine seeing a potential institutional challenge wrapped in high-profile attention and bold energy. That interpretation gets repeated a lot, even if it's still just that, an interpretation, not a confirmed fact. Catherine, on the other hand, is often described as someone who spent years learning the role step by step, putting in steady, behind-the-scenes work that rarely makes headlines, showing up to smaller engagements, supporting local communities, and handling the less glamorous duties. That's the side of royal life people don't always see, but it matters. That long buildup shaped how she operates, and it's a big reason why many view her as deeply aligned with tradition and responsibility. Then, when Meghan entered the picture, the contrast in style became impossible to ignore. Some critics claim she had no interest in following that same slow path, while supporters argue she was simply approaching the role differently and trying to modernize it. Either way, that difference in approach is what sparked so much tension in public narratives. The idea that Catherine felt threatened doesn't land for everyone. A more grounded take is that she may have felt frustration or even concern watching someone step into a system with a completely different mindset. As for claims that Meghan expected to rise to the very top quickly, those remain unverified and debated, even though figures like Tom Bauer have repeated them. Catherine has long been seen as someone who understood her future role from an early stage and shaped her life around it. Years of preparation, constant public attention, and real personal sacrifices all come with that path, and she's handled it in a way many people respect. That steady, disciplined approach is a big part of why her public image is so strong today. The idea that Meghan was trying to skip the line is something critics repeat a lot, but it's still an interpretation, not a confirmed reality. What's clearer is that the two women approached royal life very differently, and that contrast created tension in how their roles were perceived. Some see it as a clash of values, others as a mismatch of expectations, but calling it an insult is more opinion than fact. There's also this recurring theme people bring up, that the institution itself is bigger than any individual, and over time, it stabilizes no matter what happens around it. Looking at 2026, Catherine and Prince William continue to receive strong global attention, alongside other senior royals like Edward and Sophie, who've also taken on more visible roles. That shift in focus has been noticeable, especially as the royal lineup evolves. As for Harry and Meghan, their path has clearly moved in a different direction, centered around private ventures, media projects, and life in California.
I think she actually has not necessarily told the full truth about her age. I think she's actually a lot older than she actually purports to be.
Did they?
And yes, I do. And I think even her father and her sister have alluded to that. A lot of her contemporaries at school, which was 6 years more than she actually claims to be.
Financial speculation gets thrown around a lot online, but there's no verified public evidence detailing their exact situation. What is clear is that their story has unfolded very differently from what many once expected, and that contrast keeps people talking. Tom Bauer often leans on hard data to make his case, and sometimes numbers hit harder than any headline. Recent YouGov polling tied to the late Queen Elizabeth II centenary has definitely fueled debate about where different royals stand with the public. The late Queen scores extremely high, and figures like Prince William, Catherine, and Princess Anne also show strong approval ratings, while King Charles sits at a more mixed but still solid level given the pressures around him. When it comes to Harry and Meghan, the numbers are notably lower in those same polls, and that contrast has become a major talking point. Harry's drop in approval compared to earlier years has been widely discussed, and Meghan's ratings have also faced heavy scrutiny. Still, polls capture a moment in time and can shift depending on events, media coverage, and public sentiment, so they don't tell the entire story on their own. Tom Bauer has framed these figures in a very harsh light, but calling them proof beyond argument goes further than what polling alone can justify. Public opinion is complex, and while these numbers highlight a decline in certain audiences, they don't fully define a person's global reputation or future trajectory. As for Prince Andrew, his extremely low approval ratings reflect well-documented controversies that have significantly impacted public perception. But claims beyond established, verified issues should be treated carefully, especially when they move into speculation or unproven allegations. What do those numbers actually mean in the real world? They can make things harder, no doubt about it, but it's not as absolute as no doors open or no brands will touch them. Companies look at more than a single approval rating. Global reach, audience segments, and specific project fit all matter. Still, lower favorability can complicate partnerships and negotiations, and that's why these figures get so much attention. Tom Bauer has argued for a while that financial pressure could build if major deals slow down, and that idea has gained traction in some circles. But saying he's always right goes too far. His work is one perspective among many, and not all of his claims are universally accepted or verified. The reality is more mixed, with shifting projects and ongoing public interests still keeping them in the spotlight. As for how this ends, predictions about titles being removed or major royal decisions being made in the future are exactly that. Predictions, not confirmed plans. Any changes to titles involve legal, constitutional, and political layers, and there's been no official announcement outlining the kind of sweeping actions some commentators talk about. It's a dramatic idea, but it remains speculative for now. And regarding claims that specific appearances or tours have accelerated decisions behind palace walls, that's another area where there's no public evidence confirming those internal reactions. It makes for a compelling narrative, but it's not something that's been substantiated. William watched it, and what many observers took from that moment was a couple leaning heavily on their royal connection in a way that continues to spark debate about what should or shouldn't be acceptable going forward. That tension between personal branding and institutional boundaries isn't fading anytime soon. The questions people keep raising aren't disappearing either. Conversations about finances, immigration details, and Meghan's earlier years, including timelines and how key moments unfolded, are still circulating widely. But here's the key point. A lot of this remains unproven speculation mixed with public curiosity, even as more mainstream voices begin addressing topics that used to live only in online discussions. The noise is getting louder in 2026, no doubt about it. Tom Bauer's book, Betrayal, pushed many of these conversations into the spotlight, and whether people agree with him or not, it clearly got people talking. Once those discussions start rolling, they don't just disappear, they evolve, they grow, and they keep pulling in new attention from every direction. That's how stories like this keep gaining momentum. If this breakdown made you think differently about everything happening here, make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment.